but he has come to set us free. He said he has left the comforter. And so this morning we just want to live in the fullness of his glory this morning. Let us just worship the Lord this morning. We have so much to be thankful for. Praise God. Allow the Holy Spirit to work in and through you. Just tell Satan that he's a liar. He likes to intervene and just make you want to just sit in your seat and don't say anything to shut you up. be nothing without you, oh God. Our service would be in vain without the Holy Spirit's presence in our midst today. Father, we just want to please you. Father, we just want to worship you today. You're worthy to be praised, oh God. Rid us of anything, Lord, that is hindering us from worshiping you this morning, oh God. May our praises be pure before you, oh God. May they go up as a sweet smelling savor. Father, you deserve the glory and the praise and the honor today. Father God, we just want to worship you, God. You're so good. You've been so good to us, Lord. You've been so good to us, Lord. Many times we fail to recognize how good you are. You have kept us, Lord. You have protected us, Lord. God, you have taken us through many trials. Oh, God. You are so awesome, Lord, in every way. Holy Spirit, reign in our lives. God, many times, Lord, we direct our minds and our hearts on the wrong things, Lord. But God, help us to focus on you. It is because of your goodness and your mercies why we're here today. Many would have liked to be here, Lord. But God, we just want to thank you. We just want to thank you, Lord. Because you've been so good to us this morning. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, we give you praise today, God. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
and welcome to the Planting Community Church. We are thrilled to have you here. Although the COVID-19 pandemic is here, as a church, we are encouraged that even in the time of uncertainty, God can inspire us to find new ways to engage, encourage, and fellowship with each other. Be sure to visit us online using the website theplanting.cc/online so that you don't miss out on all the exciting activities that we have planned. Going forward, Pastor James will bring the word in a new way online, with services on Facebook and YouTube on Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. We encourage you to interact with each other using the chat feature on these platforms. Links to these social channels can be found below. Even though we are not meeting face-to-face, we encourage you to use this opportunity to give your tithes and offering, as the work of the Lord depends on your giving. We're excited to introduce Tidally and e-transfer as electronic way that you can continue to give. If you would prefer to write a check instead, please mail it to our address at 236 Nairn Avenue, Toronto, Ontario, M6E 4H4. That's 236 Nairn Avenue, Toronto, Ontario, M6E 4H4. Additional information on our online giving platforms are detailed below. Stay connected to our website for updates, as we will reveal new ways to stay in touch, such as phone-based prayer meetings and online small groups and Bible study. Further details to follow. At PCC, we encourage you to be cautious and careful, but hopeful and steadfast. Please know that we are excited to engage with all of you online in a new and fresh way, not forsaking our meetings together, but encourage one another during these times. Well, that's what's happening at PCC. Please follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/theplanting.cc or visit our website at theplanting.cc/online. Have a fabulous week, a blessed week, and please stay safe.
Pastor Marcel here. I want to welcome you to our web streaming for our Sunday service at the Planting Community Church. I'm so glad you could join us today. Our message today is Jesus for every season. Their master had gone, crucified by the authority of Rome. The resurrection appearance did little to curb the anxiety of the fledgling disciples of Jesus. They rejoiced to see that their master was no longer in the tomb. Things had changed. This appearance was not a sustainable path. After all, they were following a man who could not protect himself or them from the tyranny of Roman rule. Yes, Jesus was alive, but how would that help them in this moment of great need? Can they truly trust someone who promised that he would ultimately leave and go back to the Father and return in a distant future? They were very anxious about the present circumstances and needed to ensure their survival and welfare. Peter was the most vocal and perhaps indifferent disciple at that time. How can one show fidelity to this leader when they were not sure what this all meant? Can we follow when the circumstances seem unclear or even dire? Peter took action. He's like, guys, it's up to us to fend for ourselves now. And so as they did before Jesus came along, they went back to fishing. Here's how it went down in John chapter 21, verse 1 to 19, and I'll read that from the Revised Standard Version of the Bible. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. And he showed himself in this way. Gathered together were Simon Peter, Thomas, called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples. Simon Peter said to them, "I'm going fishing." They said to him, "We'll go with you." They went out, got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, "Children, you have no fish, have you?" They answered him, "No." He said to them, "Cast the net on the right side, and you will find some there." So they cast it. And now they were not able to haul it in because there were so many fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on some clothes, for he was naked, and jumped into the sea. But the other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish. For they were not far from land and was only about 100 yards off. When they had gone ashore, they saw a charcoal fire there with fish on it and bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you have just caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net full of large fish, 153 of them. And though there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." Now, none of the disciples dared ask him, "Who are you?" because they knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread, gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. This was now the 3rd time that Jesus appeared to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." A second time, he said to him, "Son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him a 3rd time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter felt hurt because he said to him a 3rd time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Very truly I tell you, when you were younger, you used to fasten your belt and you would go wherever you wished. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will fasten a belt around you and take you where you do not wish to go." He said this to indicate the kind of death by which he would glorify God. And after this, he said to him, "Follow me." Jesus for every season. Life comes in unique seasons, and some we can anticipate and plan for, and others just come like a blast of unexpected winter storm. It is sometimes easier to see Jesus in the good seasons, the breezy summer days of our lives, when nothing happens It seems to be easy to understand that God's on our side. But life happens and sometimes knocks the winds out of our lungs and leave us breathless. We're left with a season of lack, fear, confusion, and hopelessness. When these seasons come, where do we turn? To who do we look for help? Where does our help come from? In these seasons where we find hope and restoration for our souls, where does it come from? Looking at the passage before us today, we can see that life in the first century was no different than today in the 21st century. First century Christians faced tremendous fears and loss, as we can see in this narrative. This was a unique season in the life of Jesus' early followers. And for them, this could be defined as a season of isolation and lack. The season of lack. During a season of scarcity, we become anxious. And anxiety leads to self-sufficient tactics. We go back to what we used to do before. In their case, they went back to fishing. They had momentarily forgotten the call, "I will make you fishers of men if you follow me." The anxiety spreads from one person to another. It's called the herd mentality. One person become anxious. There was a study done many years ago by some clinicians that said humans tend to have what they call a herd mentality. Studies show that if there were cows in a pasture and one cow was irritated, that all the cows in the herd would also become irritated and follow the original irritated cow. In fact, it goes so further to say that if cows are in a neighboring farm, they can sense the anxiety in this farm and they too can become anxious. And sometimes we as humans tend to become anxious when everybody around us seems to be anxious. We see this in the panic shopping that has been taking place, where people begin to hoard due to anxiety. And Peter charted this course, and the other disciples followed. Here we have 7 disciples, all following Peter, away from the mission of God, back to fishing on their own. For them, it was a season of confusion, a season where they felt isolated from the Master. Jesus appeared in this moment. He appeared at the seashore for these hungry and forlorn disciples. Here John states, he said to them, "Come and have breakfast." Now none of the disciples dared to ask him, "Who are you?" Not only that, but this was also the 3rd time Jesus had showed himself to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. In the boat, they recognized that it was Jesus. Who else would be able to command the fish to swarm in abundance into unbroken nets? Must be the Lord. The disciples whom Jesus loved said it must be the Lord. It can only be Jesus. When Jesus comes into our crises and turns our lack into abundance, we too can shout, "It's the Lord." As one songwriter declares, "Oh, it is Jesus. Yes, it is Jesus. It is Jesus in my soul. Oh, I have touched the hem of his garment, and his blood has made me whole." They knew it was Jesus. But as they ate breakfast, there was an uncomfortable silence because of the ensuing pandemonium. Sometimes in our ordeal, we don't know how to pray. We don't know how to look to Jesus. We don't know how to recognize him. And they allowed anxiety and hopelessness to set in. And they had somehow forgotten the mission, left adrift in the disturbing season of confusion. But Jesus showed up. The season of lack, disorder, and anxiety was now turned around. John illustrates for us the raw stress of a period where they felt lost and fell into a situation of isolation. They were experiencing distance. This threat to their daily bread was also felt by Jesus. He showed up right on time. He could have shown up during the night. I suspect Jesus knew they were struggling all night. He could have given them a hand. But no, Jesus showed up early the next day without looking in the boat, asking a rhetorical question. "Children, you have no fish, do you?" They answered no. Wow. Jesus knows our problems, and he knows what you lack. Here's the thing. He shows up, and he reminds us that he is the Lord in every situation. The IVP commentary shares this observance. It says 7 disciples were mentioned, and this may be symbolic of the entire group. Though John does not draw attention to the number, more important is the simple fact that they are together. Jesus had formed the nucleus of a new community during his ministry and further established it on the cross and in the breathing of the Spirit. Now he reminds them of his lordship and their dependency on him in the fulfillment of the commission he has given them in John 20:21-23. He does this by focusing on 2 of the leaders among the disciples, Peter and the beloved disciples. Friends, it is easy to get caught up in the thoughts of what ministry is and where Jesus enters the space is to remind us that it's all about him. It's all about Jesus. Peter and his companions were soon to understand that Jesus is the focus of their mission. The encounter began with the question, "Children, you have no fish, do you?" And it ended with the question, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" When we recognize him, sometimes we don't know how to ask, "Is it him?" Then we might be like Peter, feeling so unworthy that Jesus has to repeat himself several times just to make sure that we get it. That we love him above all else. When, like Peter, we come to recognize that we love Jesus, it renews hope. It restores our soul. culminating in peace and fills us with joy. As Aidan states, believers can experience joy even in the midst of trouble. This joy, deeper than happiness, is possible for those who live on this side of Easter. As Douglas John Hall reflects, a Christian community that has undergone the cross and the night has the right to announce the dawn. At the summation of this discourse, Jesus had one word for this leader, Peter, and vicariously to the others. One simple, follow me. This word sums up the command to follow Jesus as he walked on earth. In terms of the prophet Micah, hundreds of years before Christ, he has told you, O mortal man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. During this crisis, may we hear just follow me. We can trust Jesus in every season, in the good and in the bad, in season and out of season. Psalm 121 is a psalm of assurance of God's protection. And I'd like to pray this over you in closing today. I will lift my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore. Listen, I pray for you that God's peace will reign in your heart and in your mind above all else. And that in the midst of our current crisis, you will hear Jesus say, "Come, follow me." He is your Lord. He is your provider. He's your safety net. And he's well able. God bless you. And we'll continue to keep in touch as we connect with one another in this season. Amen.